When a company announces a new artificial intelligence integration, the panic usually starts at the bottom. We expect the software to absorb repetitive, entry-level tasks, clearing out customer service desks and data entry pools. The numbers back up that fear. Last year, a survey of nearly 700 companies showed that contact centers integrating AI laid off over a quarter of their total workforce within 12 months. But corporate boards reviewing these ledgers are spotting a different variable. Entry-level human labor is relatively inexpensive. Cutting those jobs reduces overhead, but it doesn't solve the massive financial drain at the top of the payroll. The automation threat is dropping from the ceiling, targeting the most expensive seats in the building first. To understand why, look at the architecture of modern AI. These are artificial neural networks. They do not follow pre-programmed rules. Instead, they digest massive datasets, testing variables until they find the hidden patterns. Early versions of this technology learned through simple repetition. Developers would feed them highly constrained environments, like an Atari video game. The software would fail thousands of times until it recognized the patterns that earned a high score. Then the scope expanded. A company called DeepMind trained a neural network known as AlphaGo to play the ancient board game of Go, a game with more possible board configurations than there are atoms in the observable universe. The machine defeated the world's top human grandmasters. It didn't win by calculating faster. It won by identifying strategic sequences within those black and white stones that human minds couldn't perceive. Mastering the near-infinite variables of Go proves a capacity for high-level pattern recognition that can be pointed toward the similarly complex data streams of corporate management. The first casualties of this high-level pattern recognition are the management consultants. For decades, corporations have paid millions to these outside firms to analyze their internal data and recommend strategies. The actual work behind those recommendations is largely done by junior analysts. They gather company records, scrape industry data, and distill it into a presentation. That process, collecting, collating, and summarizing, is the exact function of a large language model. We are already seeing the friction of this handover. Deloitte recently delivered a $250,000 policy report to the Australian government. They generated it using AI, and it was riddled with fabricated academic references and fake court judgments. Despite the errors, the consulting industry is pressing forward, and it's changing their hiring structure. This animated diagram shows the classic corporate pyramid, heavily supported by junior staff. Now we are seeing it shift into a vertical obelisk, eliminating the foundational workforce while keeping the senior partners at the top. But the clients paying for these services are doing the math. If the consulting firm is using an algorithm to synthesize data, the client company can simply run their own internal data through a similar model, entirely removing the million-dollar middleman. These models are proving capable of incredibly high-stakes decisions. An AI tool named Mirai has successfully predicted future breast cancer diagnoses simply by identifying subtle tissue patterns on a mammogram that human radiologists miss. This ability to find predictive value in complex data translates directly to the corner office. At its core, executive leadership relies on identifying those same subtle patterns in market data and resource allocation. Researchers at Cambridge University recently tested this theory. They set up an extensive simulation of the automotive industry and tasked both an off-the-shelf large language model and a group of real business executives with running the companies. The AI consistently outperformed the human executives across almost all performance metrics. It digested the market data and made calculated, profitable decisions, completely isolated from human variables like panic, greed, or fatigue. This animated bar chart outlines the financial incentive driving this transition. Here is a single massive block representing the average Fortune 500 CEO's salary. Next to it are 280 tiny blocks, representing the wages of the average worker. For a board of directors looking to optimize spending, that massive block at the top turns bright red. It represents an enormous pool of capital tied up in a single, flawed human being. Corporate executives have a fiduciary duty to cut costs and maximize value for their shareholders. If the data proves an algorithm can run the company more efficiently, the ultimate act of leadership is orchestrating their own technological replacement. Imagine the logical endpoint of this cycle. A hyper-efficient corporate landscape where algorithms run the logistics, generate the marketing, answer the customer complaints, and sit in the corner office. To see the flaw in this design, we have to look back at the early 20th century. The industrialist Henry Ford faced a different kind of labor calculation. Economic theory dictates that Ford paid a high wage to the men working on the line so that they would have enough disposable income to actually purchase the products they were building. That brings us to a devastating macroeconomic paradox. If a business automates its entire hierarchy, from the call center to the executive suite, there is no payroll. And without a payroll, there are no consumers left with the capital to buy the products. The solution to this paradox requires abandoning the mass market entirely. Instead of selling millions of affordable items to the working class, a fully automated corporation simply shifts its focus to the ultra-wealthy. The video game industry already relies on this architecture. They use a freemium model, where the vast majority of people play for free, but the company's profit margin is generated by a tiny fraction of wealthy users willing to spend thousands of dollars on digital perks. This strategy is bleeding into the physical world. High-end brands selling extreme luxury goods like this Lamborghini are experiencing record sales, catering strictly to individuals whose wealth comes from owning assets rather than trading their time for an hourly wage. From luxury grocery stores to private aviation, an entire ecosystem continues to consume and thrive, completely decoupled from the traditional working-class economy. Universal basic income serves as a baseline, desperate patch intended to keep the consumer economy functioning when traditional labor no longer provides a paycheck. The real threat of AI lies in a perfectly optimized corporate algorithm, legally pricing human beings out of the economy.